have us go to our desk and grab a Merriam-Webster dictionary, sit in front of the class in a circle, and she would show us how to look up words, use the definition as a meaning, and express to other people in our class what we had found. And she did that with a game where we would find up to 5-syllable words, each letter going along with each day. So the day that I had my win of finding the most syllables was the letter C. And the word that I found was Constantinople. And I loved the way that the sound of Constantinople danced off my tongue. So that is how I began to fall in love with words, and I explained to the class that, as we know now, Constantinople is Istanbul, Turkey. So that is my first memory of falling in love with words. Later in 2007, in the spring, the last day of spring, my brother Adam passed away from liver cancer. On that day, I wanted to say goodbye to him in a way that was organized, and so that I could get my frustration, my grief, the depression, the confusion, all of those different feelings together so I could say my final goodbye. And I prayed on my way to the hospital that God would give me an opportunity to do that, as I had already prepared what I was going to say in a poem. And I was able to. I was able to get there in time to say my goodbye with a poem that I created called My Brother So Sweet. Now, just a week later at his celebration of life, I gave that poem as a public reading for the first time. And I was thankful that I got through that without crying or falling, prey to our emotions. But I was able to do that in an organized way. And other people were able to relate with my feelings, as they were family members that enjoyed spending time as a family together. And we just created a moment of happiness at that celebration of life. And so it was happy thoughts that I was able to convey to them. Later in 2011, I was still battling the grief. And I wanted to find other people that enjoyed poetry as well. And I found a group called Kansas City Poetry Group, because that was the Midwest town that I lived in. And in 2011, I took over as the organizer for this 150-member group for poetry. And we came together and we workshopped. We created poems and shared them together so that we could express our thoughts in a group setting, as well as doing poetry events and just working on our own individual strengths with our poems. That is where I met my husband, Morteza. He was a poet. He's from Tehran, Iran, and so he's a Persian poet. And he introduced me to several Persian poets like Rumi and Omar Khayyam. And these are new, different international people that, in fact, his family descends from Turkey. So it kind of links back to my obsession with words in Constantinople. So that was interesting to me. But on our first date, we went to a Persian restaurant, and he had brought along his poem collection of his own, as well as Orgreaves of Innocence, which is a poem collection book by Patti Smith that he gave me as a gift. So, of course, as we shared our poems, we found a commonality. Not just the poetry, but the substance of the poetry, because we each had come from first marriages where we had divorced. We each had our own daughters, Alexa and Alyssa, and so we had a lot in common. So we thought, well, how would we be able to put that together? And we did that with Unveiled Eyes, an introduction of poetry on broken dreams. Now, at this time, as a person would see, my last name was not the same as his. So we hadn't quite gotten married yet, but we did publish our book on December 31st, 2012, and it was our collection of poetry that we then, later on March 20th, just 4 months later, we got married, and I'm going to share with you my vow and poem, My Lover's Braces. And when I forget the scent of my lover's braces, my hands become stained purple-red by raspberries prune. When forgotten, the touch of lamb-woven fibers, curled angelic testaments of my finger-tipped place, there lies love's whisper. He is there, in water-kissed sunlight, a dandelion floret breeze, soft dusted roads, powdered white shone, near grass-laden ways that lead to love's bridge. Once rusted by time, now broadened by faith, I would wait a millennium to kiss towards that face. In present the gift I crave lies in my embrace, and I am whole. Now, as we developed the book, we then made a website where you can purchase it, and it's at unveiledeyes.com. Now, presently, I work for Atlanta Regional, as Atlanta Regional Coordinator for Poetry for Personal Power. And this group originates in the Midwest in Kansas City, but we branched out into Atlanta now that I'm going to school here, and we promote advocating for those that are going through adversities. At that time, it was grief, depression, those different emotions we all go through, and Poetry for Personal Power is a non-for-profit organization that allows people to use their interests, use their strengths, whether it be poetry, art, music, any kind of thing that you can pull a personal strength from, to embrace sharing and getting through it together. So that is Poetry for Personal Power. I do research. I also write grants for the non-for-profit. What I've handed you is just an analysis of me conveying this to you, and I also am able to sell my work. So in 2014, a goal that I have for my future is to publish in America's oldest poetry magazine called Poetry, and it allows you to submit up to 4 works at a time and get $300 back as commission for poetry submissions. So those are the things that I look forward to, publishing more works, possibly more books with my husband or individually, and just publishing in a magazine for 2014. Thank you.